Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Thursday, 19 October 2023, we meet today to talk about VRA, Veracity's crypto. I made a video for you not long ago on the problem Veracity encountered with the issuance of tokens. That changed at the beginning of October, so I waited a little bit to make sure I had all the information. And that the course calms down a little to give you an update on 1, the status of the project, 2, the actual state of the burning that took place and the impact that it has on the ecosystem, and 3, the impact that it was at the level of the courses to be able to project the medium-long-term course to see if it could be interesting for you at the level of Veracity, giving you all the information, and it starts right away. As a reminder, you always have the possibility of having free access to the educational course, which is a 60-hour training worth €400, which allows you to learn blockchain, crypto, investment, analysis technique, trading, everything to become profitable. Through 130 videos, 400 pages of guides, quizzes to find out where you are in your progress, and all for free. To have access to this lifelong training, simply use the platform of one of our partners. Everything is explained in the comments and descriptions. We'll start by introducing Veracity. So Veracity is a project which is not young, clearly not young, which was created and which has evolved over time historically. It was supposed to be a wallet for esports, NFT, and all things digital currency. Really specialized with a very gamer image, very gaming sensation, and integration of the blockchain in gaming with a large NFT part. Okay, that has changed greatly to arrive at something like this, which is the representation of proof of view, therefore POV, which allows you to check whether the person is truly human or not when they look at an advertisement, when they watch content. So it's knowing that we're in a general market where what we're selling is attention. That is to say, when you are not paying for content, remember that you yourself are the product. You know the adage. Generally, if you don't pay anything, you are the product. It's the same principle, except that we're actually selling the person's attention. And how do we check whether the person looked closely? Was she paying close attention? Was it really someone human? Well, Veracity created a solution called VeraView, which we will look at later, which invented the notion of POV, therefore proof of view, which allows you to check whether the person is yes or no is in a decentralized way, in a way that is traceable at the blockchain level. Did the person look at the advertisements or not? Was it a living person, not a bot? So here we are really in an approach that is different from the historical image that they had, with something that was really focused around video games. And so there we are moving towards a notion of pure technology, in which we will really have the notion of VRA, which will be integrated into their entire ecosystem, which will be used in the notion of VeraView. We will discuss it a little later in the notion of validation, and next to it we will have the VRA, which will be used in the use cycle of Veracity, which makes it possible to pay for the different transactions, to be able to intervene, to recover the earning, to have something which will be between the holders, the users of VeraView and aside. The sharing of advertising revenue serves a real purpose in this entire ecosystem. On the other hand, we have other issues that we will discuss after precisely this notion of burning, which is very important. However, they invented something called VeraView, which is the really important point, which is the Vera wallet, which is the original idea of the project, and we have VeraView, which is the modification of the project, the evolution of the project. So, VeraView is really important in the ecosystem, in the sense that it's the evolution of Veracity for them. Clearly, the wallet, I think it will have a really hard time surviving. VeraView, for them, they are banking on evolution. So we must already understand that it will be based on the fact that there is a shortfall for people who pay for advertisements to validate that there is a very low percentage of humans who watch the advertisements. Therefore, obviously, what they are paying is not consistent with the number of users they are seeing. Already there are perhaps elements that are not necessarily good in this narrative for a particular reason, which is that the price adapts to the actual percentage of user losses, okay? Clearly, when we target and pay for excessively targeted advertising, it is advertising that is very expensive, okay, in which we will have a very, very expensive value. In fact, what we call the pay to lead. This means that we are actually going to buy a qualified lead, and that is something which has a real cost, and which is very different from the notion of watering in general that we can see on an advertisement such as, for example, on YouTube. That's it. Really take a step back from that. So I think there is clearly a concern in terms of the business model around this. Considering that there is a colossal shortfall, yes, I agree that there is currently a large part of the views which are not necessarily linked to users. Although the technologies have currently improved a lot, and I can assure you that YouTube really separates all the bad views from the good views, and that is sure and certain that there are flag systems which are given. So on the other hand, yes, I agree, it's a black box, it's YouTube. So it's YouTube which tells you no, but there are 10 people and you have no way of verifying that, that's for sure. On the other hand, there is something else, which is that if you ever have a way of verifying that these are qualified leads, therefore implying hyper-qualification, and that, on the other hand, it is someone who will be truly human, therefore which corresponds to the type. And who is truly human? So this is what we call hyper-qualification of the lead. At that moment, it is something which is worth much more than what we currently pay. All right? So here we go in terms of advertising. And that's why there are some who specialize in this. Will the arrival of VeraView help reduce the ratio? Yes, but will it save advertisers money? I don't think so, because we are going to arrive at a hyper-qualification solution, and therefore at that moment, people, therefore advertisers, will pay more for their cost per thousand, for example. So that is to say the cost to generate 1,000 views. At that point, they will pay a lot more because that they are sure and certain that it is traceable, that it is human, and that behind it is qualified. So the notion of rhetoric, I'm not calling into question the project. I'm just saying that the marketing presentation that is made around it as being a magic solution that will solve the loss of advertisers, it's false. It's just totally false because for me, we are in another business. We are not in the current classic business. We are going to be in a notion of lead qualifying, and therefore we are still in something that is different. And so for me, we will really have to ask ourselves the question, is there a real market for VeraView or not? And that's really going to be a structural business concept around that. So we will stop there for this explanation, but we will move towards the notion of burning. So we must already understand a little bit what happened. It is that historically, I will simplify, we have 10 billion tokens, which are the 10 billion VRA, classic, therefore which is the classic max supply. All right, this is what was at the start of the project. Then they decided to mint 80 billion to run with VeraView. And by doing that, they said to themselves, well, listen, I'm going to spend 10 billion more than that I'm going to keep in my pocket to be able to buy other companies or be able to pay for my development. So overall, I printed money. Following that, there was a huge outcry. You can't even imagine. That's the subject of my last video telling me. But at what point do developers say to themselves that I'm going to create 80 to use on VeraView when it's my token which serves as a holding? I don't even understand this concept. And next to it, without any shame, we create 10 billion in order to say, well, there's no problem, we just simply print money. And finally, it's not even printing money, we just steal money from holders who have held the token for a while because overall it is pure division. There was an uproar about it, there was a community vote which was finally passed. So it took 3 years also. It's the same, it was very long, in which that's it, the 10 billion were burned. So that is to say that they decided to destroy the money that they created, so that prevents the harm from being done. I mean, just a digression, but the fact of having created this led to a depreciation of the token, which is just colossal and which has not been reabsorbed. So the damage has already been done, really. They really made the community of those who believed in the project suffer. And the 80 billion, they decided that they are looking at what they are going to go through another blockchain to exchange it, to be able to manage and verify. So already, basically, having arrived at this type of reflection, I have 3 questions. 1, do I trust people who are capable of doing this? The answer is no. Second question, are people competent to say to themselves that we are going to do that? The answer is once again no. Once again, I don't know any 3 web developer who will say I'm going to create my tokens in the token that I have already created. Overall, it's the only way to do that, and to say to yourself that it's intelligent is to say to yourself like that I could type into it later in a year, 2 years, and transform it again into potentially a treasure that I will use, so I will dilute my holders. So overall, there you go. The third is it enough? The answer, for me anyway, is no. Right now, that's not enough. That is to say that currently, it is just that they are canceling what they have done, and still partially because they are not busy with the 80 billion, they are just busy with the 10 billion to burn. The 80, for the moment, there is no solution. So we will see when there will be a solution. So will there be a magic solution or not? I don't think so. I think it's going to have an impact. And second, the damage is done. The damage is done. It has caused excessive harm to the community. It has caused excessive harm to the tokens. Trust is broken. To come back from there, it will be very complicated. It's going to be really, really complicated. And I really think that this will impact VeraView's business itself. So for me, this is the classic type of project that I'm personally going to stay away from. Already from the start, I wasn't necessarily very close to the project. I followed because it was a project that could be interesting and which had been pushed a lot on YouTube, etc. So I was a little interested in that because there was still a lot of information on it. But when I see that, yes, but it's not enough. In fact, we should have overreacted by saying, okay, excuse us regarding what was done. At that point, we are going to hit our runaway, therefore implied in the company's money, because the company's money is not the VRA. The company's money is the funds they raised when issuing VRAs, and it is not all of the VRAs. Type in to say, okay, well, either I'm going to buy back some of the existing tokens from the max supply to be able to adjust the price and revalue the holders. This is not the case. We are still very, very far away. And so for me, I still stick to the general idea. It is not enough, and it is a project which for me must prove itself, whether in business model, whether in terms of community. VERASITY has a big community, but how many of this community are still present? Despite what happened, and this is hugely reflected at the technical analysis level, you will see that, in fact, it is quite obvious when we look. We will just zoom in at the technical analysis level. You will see that the impact is relatively weak. So technically it's simple. We have an accumulation phase, big acceleration with first part of bull run, second acceleration with second part of bull run, in which we have a distribution of week off, and with UTAD, so really perfect distribution of week off that we had with a bearish breakout. This bearish breakout brings us precisely to our lower part, which is a lateralization zone, which is all in all normally perfect, really perfect to say that here we are in a zone where we should be able to lateralize, accumulate, to leave again. We have this big acceleration in January 2023, with in particular all the FOMO that there has been around artificial intelligence and a big valuation of the VRA. It was really very impressive on that side, with a break-off structure which gave us a good indication, except that afterwards we had a big dilution of the token, very strong, in this zone of accumulation. And there we see the double acceleration by the attendance of the burning which took place, except that we see that we have already reduced half of the acceleration just in the second week. And there we see that we are in the process of swallowing the whole thing. If we look at how many retracements we are at, you will see that it is quite strong, in which we have retraced almost 70%. So we are really very far from a return of the confidence of users and holders. Besides, tell me if you are a holder, do you still have confidence in this? Is what has been done sufficient? Or were you expecting more? And do you continue to recharge? Why do you keep recharging? I'm interested to see. Because for me, technically, I am more in a bearish acceleration, retracement, continuity of bearish acceleration to potentially retest this imbalance that is there. Technically, I'm saying to myself that yes, I have a retest, but the retest is not enough. We have a little break-off structure here, but it's either we're going to retest them here, we manage to hold, and we manage to do a form of lateralization in these areas, so that's important. If we manage to maintain that, it could be interesting. On the other hand, if this bottom breaks well at that moment, we say to ourselves that we are going to retest this part, okay? So technically, it's a bit of a test of confidence. Either we manage to hold on or we sink, we break. And so at that moment, we will break the lowest, and there it will be really very complicated to start again at the level of VERASITY and the VRA. Are there going to be other announcements? I really hope for the VERASITY community that there will be other announcements, that there will be other things that will start again, because clearly as long as this problem is not resolved, as long as we does not have a proof of VERASITY behind it, what we will have to wait for is technically to have a break of 0.11 here to validate the fact that we are starting again in a bullish structure. So make a break of structure there, potentially waiting here for a nice entry for a particular retest. To then accompany where would we go to find? We would go and look for the different liquidity that I spoke to you about last time, the 0.035, the 0.05, the 0.06, and potentially do a retest of the 88th. Again, behind it, we need to have a bull run that arrives, whether at the end of the bull run that we have a very strong incentive at the level of VERASITY, that we have a real utility proven at the level of VERAVIEW with behind big partnerships which are carried out to be able to have a valuation of the VRA, and behind that we have an effective movement of the remaining 80 billion VRA in the utility of VERAVIEW. Whether it is carried on another token, on another blockchain, finally the double token blockchains, it is classic limit. We see plenty of it and it works very well. Why go do something else? I don't know, I don't understand. And it's more or less what intrigues me the most in this project. It's the actual choices, and that doesn't reassure me at all. Not. In any case, this remains only my opinion. Tell me what you think about it in the comments, and if you ever liked the video, leave me a like. It always makes me very happy, and we'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. for the daily.